So we're continuing our Connect series here across our parishes of St Declan's and St Joseph's, and over the past couple of weeks we've reflected on how we can choose presence and how we can choose compassion in a distracted and a hurried world. And this week I want to start by going a little bit deeper and asking what's actually driving our hurry, what's actually happening when we experience ourselves as being busy and being hurried. And first, just for a little bit of honesty, I think, what's the most common thing we say to people when people go, "Oh, how are you going?" Now, I don't know about you, but often for me, and maybe I'm the problem, I don't know, but often for me, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, often it's some form of, "Oh, look, life's good, it's like just, I'm a bit busy. You know, there's a bit going on. Things are pretty crazy at the moment. Maybe, you know what life's like. It's just getting busier and busier and all that sort of stuff," right? We generally have some sort of that kind of being our response. And often, you know, that's true. You think of work and school and family and sporting commitments, social commitments, emails, messages, deadlines, etc. Certainly life is busy. But I don't know about you, but when I say that, I'm not really like, "I'm busy, yay." I'm not really excited about it. Often when I say there's something that kind of eats at me a little bit. There's something in me that's just a bit, "I'm busy, but gee, I wish I had a different answer to that question." And then yet again, what about those moments when life isn't objectively that busy, but we still find ourselves feeling rushed inside? Where we feel like we're always playing catch-up, always thinking about what's next, like we're never really present in the current moment. And we often don't stop to really ask ourselves why life is like that, what's actually going on. Because, I think the truth is most of us don't like living like this. And this busyness, this hurry, it turns up in familiar ways that when things are a bit manic, we find ourselves maybe a bit more irritable or overwhelmed than, I was going to say we'd like to be. I don't think anyone likes being irritable or overwhelmed. We find that things feel a little bit sharper, that people are just a little bit more annoying than they normally might be. And underneath that, there's a bit of a restlessness that even when we stop, we don't really stop. Our minds keep running, our hearts keep racing. Sometimes this shows up as this kind of constant activity. Sometimes it shows up that we're kind of numb to the experience of our lives. Either way, we're not really at peace. Then we kind of shift into overdrive and we kind of settle in for the long haul. We throw ourselves into work, or our priorities get all a bit scrambled and everything feels urgent. And we start to believe, without even noticing it, that if I don't keep going, things are probably going to start falling apart. The pressure builds and it builds, and then we start to look for ways to escape. We scroll into the early hours of the evening, we distract ourselves, we check out, prayer becomes harder, we withdraw from relationship, and slowly we become more and more isolated and disconnected from God, from others, and even from ourselves. And if we stop and we take a step back and we look at this all together, something becomes almost terrifyingly clear. That hurry isn't just about being busy, but it turns into a way of living. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we relate to others, how we pray. And I don't know about you, but I really kind of don't like it. And if we don't like it, why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep living this way? And what I want to suggest to us this morning is that underneath our hurry, there's often something deeper than just having poor time management skills. That often underneath our hurry is fear. And that fear can be of different things. Fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing people, fear of missing out, fear of losing control, fear of not being enough, whatever it might be. Often there's fear. And so what do we do in the face of fear? We speed up our lives. We get busy. Not because we want to, but often it's because there's something inside us that whispers something like, if I slow down, if I make space, something's going to go wrong. That if I slow down, things might actually fall apart. That if I slow down, I might not actually like what I'm faced with in that silence and that quiet. And it's into that place of fear, of pressure, of hurry, of busyness that Jesus speaks these words in the gospel today. Do not be afraid. And in saying this, Jesus doesn't begin with a strategy, but he begins with an invitation that he invites us, do not be afraid. Because the answer to fear isn't more hurry. It's not busyness. It's not drowning it out. It's not being distracted and distracting ourselves into oblivion. It's not more effort. It's not more control. It's not more speed. That the answer to fear is an encounter. An encounter with the heart of God for us. This is what we see in Jeremiah's experience in the first reading. What do we hear? He says, I hear all around me terror. On every side, denounce him. Let us denounce him. The people are out to get him. And not just his enemies. What did he say? This really sad, almost depressing line. He says, all those who used to be my friends, they're watching for my downfall. Jeremiah is in it. He's overwhelmed, he's afraid, he's isolated and alone. Imagine what that's like. And maybe we don't need to imagine. Maybe we know that feeling ourselves and we know it to be true. And it's in that moment, in the very same breath, Jeremiah stops and he says, the Lord is at my side, a mighty hero. That externally nothing necessarily changes to Jeremiah in that moment, but internally everything is turned upside down. Because what does he know in that moment? That he knows that amidst the fear and the feeling of isolation, that the truth is that he's not actually alone. That he's not alone. That the God of the universe is with him like a mighty hero, like a warrior, other translations say. And he's filled with hope because in that moment, in the midst of the fear, he knows that he's not alone, that God is with him, that God is present to him and he sees him, that God is giving him his attention and his compassion, and that he sees him and he loves him and he'll provide for him in that moment. And in every moment, in that darkness, in that challenging place that Jeremiah is faced with, and a place that he can't get himself out of, he knows in that moment that God sees him and knows him and will provide for him and will protect him against anything that would come against him. That he knows that God is who he says he is and that he can be trusted. And he doesn't need to be afraid. This is exactly what Jesus reveals to us in the gospel. And he points to the example of the sparrows and he says, look at those sparrows. That if God will provide for a little sparrow, how much more will he provide for and protect and look after his children? That's you and me. That he knows us so much better than sparrows. He loves us so much better than sparrows. That in the midst of our fears, our busyness, we're not left isolated and alone. that we don't have to do it all alone, all by ourselves. That the answer to fear isn't hurry, but it's unhurried trust. To trust that God is with us, that He sees us, He knows us, He loves us, and He'll give us everything we need and He'll keep us safe, even in the midst of the storms that come against us. God longs for us to know that He is good and that we can trust Him. That in the face of fear that tells us that we're all alone, God says to us, you are not alone. I am with you even to the end of the age. That when fear says that we have to hold everything together all by ourselves, Jesus says, I am holding you. That when fear says that if I stop, everything's going to fall apart, God says, I hold you in the palm of my hand. He says to us, do not be afraid. So perhaps the question for us this week is not how do I slow down, but rather what fear is driving my pace. What am I afraid will happen if I slow down? What am I trying to control? What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to hold together? And so for the week ahead, I want to invite us to step into this thing that we can call unhurried trust. We might do that by taking up one of three practices. The first is to notice. And what this is about is when we have that experience where we feel ourselves driven by hurry, chasing our tails or whatever it might be, and we go, ooh, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Let's just take a moment to stop and to notice not only the hurry, but to ask ourselves, what's underneath that? What's driving this busyness? What's driving this pace? Just to notice it. Even just to allow yourself to feel that. It might be fear, it might be something else. What's driving this for me? The second thing is then to invite. That when we notice this, our first instinct is going to be to try to fix it. I want you to resist that temptation. Don't try to fix it. Rather, invite Jesus into it. Bring it to Him. Place it before Jesus. You might just say a simple prayer, Jesus, I bring this to you, and just tell Him what it is. That I'm afraid if I don't keep going, that everything's going to fall apart, or that if I don't go to this social thing, I'm going to get FOMO or something, whatever it might be, right? To bring that really humbly and simply to Jesus and allow Him to speak His words to you. Do not be afraid. You don't need to be afraid. I'm with you. And I love you. And the third practice is to practice. I want to encourage you to try to find maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day this week just to sit with Jesus. Might be at the beginning of the day, might be the end of the day, somewhere in between. To sit with Him and say to Him and invite Him to bring you into that practice of unhurried trust each day. And it might be as simply saying to Him, Jesus, I know you're at my side, that you see me, that you know me, that you love me, that I don't have to be afraid. Jesus, help me to trust in you. Something as simple as that. Doesn't have to be exactly that. But find some time to practice that unhurried trust in the face of the hurry of our lives. What's true for Jeremiah is true for us today. That the Lord is at our side. He wants to be a mighty hero for us. And He says to us, do not be afraid. The invitation is that we'd allow Him to know us, to know Him as present to us, as compassionate and attentive to us. to know him as trustworthy, and to know that the answer to fear isn't hurried, but it's unhurried trust. And that we can grow in that, we can make space for that. What we'll find is God's love will come to life in us in ways we didn't think were possible.